Since there's a number of cursed items floating around in the world, I feel like a lot of folks would sleep easier if they were protected from harming people in the safety of the one and only Warren's Occult Museum. Today we're discussing some cursed paintings, Charles Manson memorabilia, and more, so let's get into it. We might as well kick things off with the haunted eBay painting, or the Hands Resist 'Em. Based on a real-life photograph of the artist from his youth, this painting, which is a dance of a boy, a doll, and disembodied hands that can trace its origins to an abandoned brewery. Well, that's where this California couple stumbled upon its eerie presence. Soon after introducing the painting into the sanctum of their home, the couple began to deal with a lot of ickiness. We're talking, they were like, maybe we should sell this on eBay. We don't like it. It's not vibing well with our place. So, in the virtual marketplace, they presented their artifact to the world, but they did add a little note. Like, hey, by the way, this painting may or may not possess supernatural powers that could impact or change your life. Well, some folks see that and they're like, okay, bet. And yeah, so there was one couple, they were like, alright, we like this. They brought it home, and it didn't go so well with their daughter. Sorry, allow me to backtrack. The original advertisement did carry a tone of like, maybe the boy in the painting steps outside. Which, yeah, that's kind of the reason why the original couple was like, get this out of here. So the curious drama surrounding this haunted masterpiece reached its crescendo when it found a new custodian in Kim Smith, a gallery owner hailing from Michigan. The gavel of the digital auction, by the way, pronounced a sum of $1,025. Yeah, well, the enigma persisted. In a revelation that deepened the mystique, Kim Smith disclosed that her inbox bore witness to a procession of emails. A lot of testimonials from individuals claiming that, hey, we came to your art exhibit. We saw this painting. Things didn't go well. I'm talking reports of repulsion, physical illness, all because of the haunted eBay painting. Apparently, this ordinary painting was just some sort of conduit for spectral awfulness. Now, if you feel ill after we were talking about this painting, let us know in the comments. We'd love to know. Ever hear about the crying boy paintings? Well, we're speaking of paintings. So when Bob Smith was a youngin' in the 70s, he was fascinated by this painting in his grandmother's house. It was this cheap print of a well-known piece, and it was just hanging up in the living room wall, as one does. This photo depicted a boy who was kind of similar in age to Bob, and for some reason, he was sad. There was a lot of tears there. Why? No. Turns out, a couple of years after the painting went up on the wall, there was a really bad kitchen fire in the house. And even though the kitchen was destroyed, the rest of the house, undamaged. This painting was eventually sold in a garage sale, and who got it? A couple of folks. For a couple of years, it did puzzle Bob why his grandmother was like, I'm getting rid of this painting, until he read a series of articles about a cursed painting. Yep, the Crying Boy. So this is one of a series of paintings completed by artist Giovanni Bregolin that was completed in the 1950s. And it's a lot of sad humans. So while it might be kind of strange to want an image of a weeping being on your wall, these pictures were popular all over the world. Like in the UK alone, there was over 50,000 copies sold. The folks represented were often very poor, but also very beautiful. In total, Giovanni painted over 60 paintings. And up until the early 80s, prints and reprints of his images were mass produced. In 1985, the most popular tabloid newspaper in the UK printed a story that caused panic, and that's where things get spooky. The Sun published an article entitled Blazing Curse of the Crying Boy, in describing the terrible experience of May and Ron Hall after their home was destroyed by fire. And the cause of their fire, much like Bob's grandmother, was a greasy pan that overheated and went kaboom. So you've got this fire spreading rapidly and destroying everything. But there was one thing that remained intact: copy of the painting. Well, the couple was like, okay, this painting is cursed, we're getting rid of this. And hey, this probably would have just been like a little sub-story in history, except for there's one little thing. A firefighter claimed that he had attended at least 15 house fires where everything was destroyed, except for prints of the Crying Boy, which were completely intact. Well, that's where things kind of went bonkers. Everybody was like, I've had a painting, I've had a fire, you've had a fire? So, turns out the Sun also claimed that a woman had lost her house to a fire 6 months after buying the painting. There were another family, fire, painting. I could go on, but you get the idea. There was somebody that even tried to burn her painting for safety, and then she just had a lot of bad luck. We're talking like, and it wasn't just residential homes either, there was businesses. There was a pizza parlor that had everything destroyed except for the painting. So when the Sun reported that even rational firefighters refused to have a copy of this painting in their homes, that's when things were like, okay, we've got a problem. It got to the point where even if there was like an image of a crying youngin by any artist in a house that went on fire, yeah, these paintings were blamed. Thankfully, the Sun was like, okay, you know what, things are going crazy, we've got an idea. They offered the frightened public a solution. On Halloween night of 1985, hundreds of these paintings were collected together by the newspaper and burnt under the supervision of the fire brigade. So, if we want to backtrack, why were all these paintings cursed? Well, theories ranged from the person depicted in the picture being cursed because icky, Apparently, the subject of the painting had died in a fire and his spirit was trapped in the art. And the most enduring story claimed that the boy accidentally set fire to the studio of Giovanni. Simply put, wherever this painting went, fires followed. Not good. Charles Manson was sentenced to death following his conviction in 1971, and even though California was like, death penalty is not good in 1972, he was still in prison for a very long time. So we all know about the cult, right? Well, everybody was like, okay, once he goes in prison, the cult's over. Well, not so good. Not so easy. He had a way of keeping the cult going. He had a demonic influence on his cult, and he sent a lot of letters and a lot of mail from prison, which don't think he would be allowed to in nowadays. So what did he do? Well, he used electrical thought impressions on a TV. Somehow he got a TV. I don't know. Then he mailed it to a grad student so he could manipulate him from afar. This poor guy was tormented by all sorts of hallucinations and hauntings while he owned the TV. Now, eventually he was selling a car. I think it was around 2012, and he was like, I'm just gonna leave the TV in the car, and some other letters from Manson. So the guy who bought the car was like, what on earth did I do? Well, turns out he got cursed. He was out of work for like months, his mom got ill, she passed away, there was a motorcycle accident where one of his buddies died, and like even though he was like, I'm a skeptic, he's like, there's something going on here, like we're 2 and 2 making 4, this is bad. So he's like, what do I do? He didn't think of burying it, he didn't think of burning it, no, he mailed it to a friend, and his life got better. I don't know how his friend's life got, but I can't imagine it went well. So how far would you go if you missed out on getting a job? Would you like post some 1-star reviews? Maybe you'd set a creepy carving of Satan outside the company building with a curse that foretold the destruction of the place? Too far? Not for a snubbed architect in 1890 Swansea, South Wales, who was denied the chance to rebuild a church because he was like, yeah, I'll curse it instead. The story goes that when famed architect Sir Arthur Blomfield beat a local architect for the contract to rebuild the ancient St. Mary's Church in the center of the town, the local man was ticked. A couple years later, he purchased an old row of cottages that stood opposite the church, tore them down, and built a large red brick building there, placing a statue of a smiling devil outside. Well, then he also placed a curse on the church, proclaiming that it would soon be destroyed and the devil would look upon the rubble and keep smiling. Well, what do you know? During a whole big bad situation in history, St. Mary's took a direct hit, allowing the curse to come true. Now the devil is a quirky landmark, but I wouldn't go too close. And for today's final artifact, in the case of this haunted jewelry shop ledger, it seems all the spooky accountancy aide wanted was to be beside the seaside. So, backtracking, folks. After the demolition of the Shoreland Fuchs Jewelers in the city of Brighton on England's south coast, builder Tony Bennevoits removed an old shop ledger book he had found hidden behind a brick wall. He took the interesting example of retail memorabilia home, and soon enough his family was being plagued by all sorts of phenomena. We got all the usual stuff, folks. Strange voices, ghostly apparitions, you've even got images appearing in a rug. One particularly uppity spirit informed the family, actually the daughter, that you gotta get that book back to the first entry before it goes kaput. So, not wanting to anger anybody, the family did donate the book to Brighton's most haunted house, and that's where you can see it today.
Number 5. Satanic Worship Idol. Before we dive into the strange footage of the satanic idol, let's talk about its odd and terrifying backstory. The story of the idol begins in 1991, near Ed and Lorraine's home. There was a lost deer hunter wandering through the area, and after hours of finding no discernible landmarks or ways home, he came face to face with an odd and captivating discovery. In front of him was a large, raised rock formation consisting of circular rocks and a strange being standing in the center of the altar. The hunter, as I believe most of us would be, felt quite uncomfortable and uneasy about this discovery. So he began making his way back to his car, but on his way, he turned to his side and noticed an elderly man with dark eyes dressed in a fully black suit walking in perfect step with him. The two hadn't shared a word, and the hunter became more anxious with each hollow step he took, still not sure of the way out of the woods. The hunter cautiously turned over to the strange man, and with a deep breath he asked, "How do I get out of here?" The strange man lifted up a frail hand and pointed towards a small overgrown path. The hunter turned to see a small pathway and then turned back to the man to thank him, but upon glancing, the man was nowhere to be seen. He disappeared as quickly as he had appeared. The hunter escaped the forest, but was so perplexed and intrigued by the strange encounter that he decided to contact none other than Ed and Lorraine Warren. Now, here's where a new, hardly known fact is revealed. Ed and Lorraine almost always investigated reports armed with a camera to capture any footage that they may have missed and for review. Ed and the hunter located the altar, and in a moment of what can only be described as white audacity, Ed removed the demonic doll from the altar and brought it back to the museum. In the footage, the strange elderly man can be seen lurking in strange corners of the screen, materializing in random positions throughout the footage. The video recording also cuts out frequently, and strange humming noise can be heard along with the glitches. Ed and Lorraine kept the footage under wraps due to the effects that the doll had on Lorraine. And if you'd like to find out more about that reasoning, check out our video on cursed artwork in the Warren Occult Museum. Number 4. Snecker House. The Warrens are famous for their home investigations of the Perron family, the Conjuring movie inspiration, and the Amityville home. But there's a less known, very well documented case that the pair also investigated: the Snecker House. Carmen and Al Snecker rented a home in Southington, Connecticut, but upon exploring the house, they encountered something that would have scared me out of there faster than light. The pair discovered mortuary tools in their basement, tools that were used in the closed morgue that was in the basement of this house. The home was a funeral parlor. The only time living in a funeral home is acceptable is in My Girl. The couple began smelling rotten flesh, strong chemical odors throughout the house, and the water from the taps would randomly turn a deep red. Their sons were plagued by visions of ghosts and other strange entities. The ghosts became aggressive towards the family, and that's when they decided to call the Warrens for assistance, scared for their lives. The Warrens showed up, filming. They documented several apparitions. Lorraine reported feeling several supernatural entities, all who were filled with vengeance and bouts of pain. The Warrens deduced, within the same visit, that they believed the morticians would participate in horrendous, actually unspeakable acts with the deceased bodies brought into the home. Ed and Lorraine ended their investigation very quickly. In the tape, it's reported that the Sneckers repeatedly asked for sound advice on how to deal with their issue, but sadly, no footage beyond their questioning has been released. The Warrens' advice to the family remains a complete mystery. What do you think their advice would have been? Number 3. The black lace veil. Right in the middle, we're going to talk about an event that had many eyewitnesses and was likely captured in some degree by recording equipment. Following one of their public lectures, Ed and Lorraine Warren were approached by a young couple, Alan and Lonnie. Alan had brought Lonnie to the lecture because he suspected that she was under the influence of the occult. He described a disturbance. When Lonnie became angry, her features would morph and transform into a creature resembling a wolf, and an entirely different voice would emerge from her. Just as Lorraine joined the conversation, a shocking incident unfolded. Lonnie experienced an instantaneous possession and lunged aggressively at Lorraine, utterly terrifying everyone present in the room. Ed swiftly escorted the couple to a backstage room where Lonnie was fully under possession, her face distorted into the aforementioned wolf-like appearance. After about 10 minutes, the possession subsided, and Lonnie revealed her disturbing experiences of memory loss and losing time over the past few months, which, as you know, are all very common symptoms of possession. Lonnie confessed that she had resorted to witchcraft after failing to win Alan's affections. She performed a ritual that involved a black lace veil and a crown of goat horns, renouncing her faith and swearing allegiance to Satan. In a month, Alan began showing interest, but the demonic entity had gained entrance into her life. Ed knew that Lonnie needed an exorcism and contacted a priest who arrived the same day. During the exorcism, the entity within Lonnie screamed in protest, but was eventually separated from her, vowing to return to another. The Warrens took the black lace veil, goat horns, cup, and conjuring book for safekeeping to prevent repossession. However, the story of the veil didn't end there. Months later, during a meeting with another woman who manifested multiple personalities and inhuman entities, her gaze landed on the black veil. She clutched it, her features transformed, and she became an inhuman spirit. Ed, armed with blessed water, banished the demon a second and final time. Both of these events are said to have been captured on a tape recorder, as the Warrens frequently recorded their lectures. Number 2. The Haunted Pearl Necklace. The Haunted Pearl Necklace is also referred to as the Pearls of Death. This jewelry's effects are pretty obvious. The necklace is known as one of the most dangerous items within the Warrens Occult Museum, so yeah, it's living up to its name already. The Pearls of Death is a cursed necklace that has a curse or entity residing in it, causing anyone who wears it to be strangled, and in some cases even strangled so brutally that their lives are ended. Yeah, death by a necklace. I'm starting to rethink my stance on that gorgeous blue diamond necklace. If you know, you know. It's an inside joke. Only my faves know what I'm talking about. One of their former owners commonly reported being choked while wearing them, even waking up with red marks on her neck after sleeping in them. The pearls are also extremely difficult to remove. Well, they're difficult to remove from the living. Ed and Lorraine Warren kept these pearls heavily guarded and surveyed, and if you're like me, the word surveyed raises excited alarm bells. That's right, within the museum, several security cameras are placed, which not only protect the artifacts, but also monitor any strange activity. In one surveillance clip, which was privately distributed by an anonymous source who had regular access to the museum, revealed a myriad of strange activities surrounding the pearls. The video captures the pearls vibrating ever so slightly before a small light emanates from them, and a dark shadow quickly shifts towards the ground, as though it was water flowing out of the pearls. These events repeated night after night, typically around 4:24 a.m., with the effects being weaker the further away they get from the stated time. Whether Ed and Lorraine were aware of the footage being leaked to a select group of people, they never addressed it. They didn't even deny it. I suppose they figured ignoring the footage completely would decrease the interest in it, and hey, they were right. I'd never heard of it until now. Number 1. White Lady of Union Cemetery. You guys know how I feel about the naming. Come on, be more creative. The White Lady? Guys, just please try a little bit harder. Anyway, the White Lady is the name of the ghost that haunts the Union Cemetery in Connecticut. The legend surrounding her origin varies, but there are several points that consistently align to create an accurate backstory. She's thought to be the ghost of Harriet Seeley, who searches for her deceased son throughout the graveyard. It is also widely agreed that she wears a bright orange dress. Now, I'm kidding. Obviously, she wears a white dress, and you bet your bottom dollar it's a flowy one. The ghost was often seen by locals. She frequently spooked the citizens of the surrounding area, jumping in front of cars, appearing in their periphery, and then disappearing. Ed Warren was heavily interested in this apparition, so he set out on a quest to record this ghost for himself. Yes, for himself. As I said, they don't enjoy sharing their findings. Maybe the ghosts value privacy and Ed signed an NDA or something, I don't know. But the NDA didn't apply to the pair's son-in-law, Tony Spera, because shortly after their passing, he released the full footage. The footage begins by panning over a darkened cemetery, and there's definitely a heavy air surrounding the entirety of the footage. While panning over the rows of graves, a glowing human figure wearing a long white dress was spotted moving behind a tombstone, like it was playing hide and go seek. No close-up shots of the spirit were caught, and the camera wasn't very good, so any distinct details that the ghost may have remain a mystery. The video was reviewed by skeptics, and it was actually widely agreed that the footage was not doctored in any way. But not only that, the figure seen was not just an illusion or a filming trick. The being is in fact there. Ed Warren did manage to capture evidence of a ghost on camera, which is pretty amazing. Even though I'm not obsessed with him as a person, his career and accomplishments are right up my alley. That brings us to the end of today's list.
Number 5, the Donovan House Ouija debacle. If I've said it once, I've said it a million times. Leave Ouija boards alone. But yeah, here goes. Let me set the scene for y'all. 15-year-old Patty Donovan came across the Ouija board and decided to use it to find a friend. And from the first yes in response to her queries, Patty was hooked. She spent months falling in love with a spirit she believed to be in love with her, telling it private details about her everyday life. After a year of telling all of her secrets to the board, on the evening of March 2nd, Patty now pleaded for the spirit to manifest. And the next morning, Patty and her dad both found their cars damaged in such a way that wasn't humanly possible. Later that week, other incidents of apparent vandalism occurred around the house, such as, foundation shrubs being yanked to the ground, roots and all. On the roof, a 6-foot cast iron pipe housing electrical wires was found bent at a 90-degree angle. That doesn't happen. On Friday, March 8th, Patty's dad marked one flat on the kitchen calendar, and no sooner did Patty get her car back from the shop than one of her other tires lost air. The next day, Saturday, her father made the same entry on the calendar, although this time it seems like the tire had been, slashed. In the meantime, Patty could no longer raise her invisible boyfriend on the board, having no idea that her ethereal beau actually manifested in the form of a supernatural vandal. By the second week of March, material damage to the house and cars had become so troublesome that her dad complained to the police. Now when they arrived, he pointed out the destruction, and the police assured Ted, they'd keep an eye on the property during night patrols. Later that second week, after work one night, Ted and his wife Ellen were sitting in the kitchen with their son Brian when all three heard something smash against a wall somewhere inside the house. Cautiously moving to investigate, they found a gaping 18-inch hole in the plasterboard wall in Brian's room. But it wasn't just like a regular, hole. Instead, the jagged edges of the plasterboard were pointing inward, with the blow coming from inside the walls. Listening in the dark that night, Ted heard the sound of a board being pried loose. But after checking the entire house thoroughly, found no loose boards. The house was further plagued by loud noises every night that only escalated in frequency and volume, along with further unexplainable damage to the walls. On April 1st, furniture began to levitate in the worst April Fool's Day joke of all time, with a 250-pound dresser flinging its contents while flying erratically. Rocks had also begun to rain from the sky, pelting only the Donovan house, which the police bore witness to. Ted eventually broke down at work and explained the horror of his home to his supervisor, who urged him to reach out to the Warrens. Ted instead tried moving his family into a hotel first, and the spirits followed the family there, destroying the room and making so much noise that the family was thrown out of the hotel and forced to return home. Finally contacting Ed and Lorraine, they arrived in Maine as quickly as they were able to, finding the home in complete disarray. Lorraine originally said nothing, although at the time, she sensed in the home the presence of entities so numerous and threatening that she had to fight with herself to keep from running outside. After a lengthy tour of the house, Ed and Lorraine conducted an interview with the entire family, where Patty's history with the Ouija board was finally revealed. The Warrens then contacted the Catholic Church to begin the process for an exorcism to be granted, which sadly took about a month. After the exorcism took place on May 2nd, the family was finally free of the demonic torment, but left with over $5,000 in damages, which would be over like 30 grand in today's money. Honestly, it's already such a perfect horror movie story. I'd pay to watch that in theaters. Number 4, an object open to interpretation. So what appears to the innocent eye as nothing but a long black spike, perhaps left over from like a construction project of sorts, holds quite the history of sadness and evil doing. Being the oldest item listed today, its history dates back to its use in the 1700s. Now, while the name of the witch it belonged to has been lost to time, the spike was originally used in a black mass ritual in an attempt to summon Satan himself to this world. The witch we're speaking of had attempted to curse the stake over the course of her pregnancy, hoping that it would become strong enough to take the soul of her womb in exchange for the devil. During the ritual, she plunged the stake into the flesh as sacrifice, but while it strengthened her relationship with Satan, it didn't succeed in bringing him to earth. The stake was passed down as a family heirloom, bringing a feeling of longing and sadness to any that held it, until it was finally acquired by the Warrens. While the details of this particular artifact may be a little less detailed than other tales on our list today, I truly think there's a story there that could be adapted very well into the current Conjuring universe. But let me know in the comments what you think. Number 3, the White Lady of Union Graveyard. This specific cemetery where the original case took place is located near Stepney Road in Easton, Connecticut, and dates back to the 1700s. The ghostie in question is the elusive White Lady, popularized partially thanks to Ed Warren having an obsession with her, and possibly catching footage of her. Some believe she is Harriet Seeley, whose young son passed shortly after being born, and Harriet herself passed soon afterwards. Legend believes she may have died in hopes of, finding her son, and still wanders their final resting place, searching him out. Others believe she is the ghost of a woman from the 1940s who killed her husband and later herself and is doomed to wander the graveyard. Her physical description is the one thing that remains consistent. She is a young woman wearing a white dress with dark hair, which is kind of what I looked like yesterday. It seems as if she enjoys scaring the daylights out of the living, which, my kind of gal. Many who have witnessed her believe they have almost hit her with their vehicle, only to find no trace of her once they pull over. Others claim they have often seen her hovering slightly above the ground around the cemetery, going back and forth amongst different gravestones. Now, Lorraine Warren used to often take walks through the cemetery, saying that it was one of the most haunted places around. Ed caught the White Lady on camera on September 1st of 1990 at 2:40 in the morning, which was his 7th night in a row of filming at the cemetery, determined to have footage as proof, and the described dark figures surrounding her, she said he described as wood ghosts, seemed to jump on her while they all argued. Now, the Warrens have also referenced a red eyes ghost, so a pair of red eyes which they claimed can be seen in the forest behind the cemetery, but not to be confused with bike reflectors that locals have placed within the grounds to scare teens. The famous duo claimed the eyes belonged to Earl Kellogg, a man who was set on fire across the street from the cemetery in 1935. I think there's a lot to pull from here in terms of what could be used for movie magic, and a lot that could be open to Hollywood interpretation, which is kind of what they want. Loose idea, lots of things to play around with. Number 2, the Conjuring Mirror. Originally belonging to a 45-year-old New Jersey man named Oliver Birnbaum, it was used to practice a medieval ritual known as speculum, or mirror magic. He performed a lengthy incantation ritual known as a conjuring formula, inviting the spirit world to assist him in manipulating the future. In the beginning, Oliver saw very little in the mirror other than the movement of blurred forms, or quick little incidents that meant nothing to him. But the more he concentrated his attention into the mirror, the more control Oliver gained, and ergo, the more he could see. After performing this ritual obsessively for months, he got to the point where all he had to do was state what he wanted to see, and the desired image would appear, eventually being able to tune into the future whenever he so pleased. He gained the ability to project people he didn't like into the mirror, singling them out for punishment or revenge. The unknowing victim would be shown in a future situation, and Oliver would will misfortune to that person, being able to see his justice occur in the mirror just the way he planned it. And while this sounds like a fun projection of one's imagination, these malicious acts would actually be carried out by inhuman spirits. In order to make a victim fall down the stairs, a spirit would either momentarily disorient the person, pour some grease on a step, or go so far as to give the victim a psychokinetic push. Eventually, Oliver neglected the part of the ritual where he had to give homage to Satan, and as a result, the evil he proposed for others began to occur to him, along with the spirits that he turned loose on his enemies, now, infesting his own home instead. After about a week of torment, this man was so terrified that he called a prominent Catholic official and begged him to send a demonologist to his house. When the Warrens arrived at the address, they met a man frightened out of his wits, and rightfully so. Doors were opening and closing by themselves. Every minute, something would crash or break or bounce off a wall and smash. Ed was able to reverse the ritual originally enacted by Oliver and bless the house, stopping the disturbance. As the Warrens were about to depart, Oliver insisted they take the mirror with them, and the 5-foot-tall antique now lives in the museum. I can already picture the visuals that could come out of a movie based on this case. Can't you? Number 1, the black lace veil. Now, while I obviously love the idea of like a cute gothy aesthetic, this is anything but. After one of their public lectures, Ed was conversing with a couple that had been in the audience, where the boy introduced himself as Alan and explained that he'd brought his girlfriend Lonnie to the lecture because he suspected that she'd been overtaken by some occult influence. He explained that when his girlfriend became angry, her features would change into something resembling a wolf, and then the voice of a different person would speak from inside of her. When Lorraine walked over to join the group, Lonnie experienced an episode of instantaneous possession and lurched out in an attempt to attack Lorraine. Now, this incident terrified everyone in the vicinity, with the Warrens ending the audience chat session immediately, before Ed escorted the couple to an offstage room while Lorraine stayed outside. In the backstage room, the girl was fully under possession, breathing heavily, and her facial features had transformed into the wolf-like appearance the boy had talked about. After about 10 minutes, the possession passed, and Lonnie was lucid enough to explain dealing with memory loss along with losing hours and days of her life over the last 3 months, which is a symptom common in possession. She went on to share her background. She was a girl wealthy enough to buy whatever she wanted, but money can't always buy love. Originally, her now boyfriend Alan had refused all of her advances and bribery attempts at becoming hers, and she resorted to visiting a store prominent in selling tools to help with witchcraft, purchasing there a book on the black arts, and later that night performing a ritual for acquiring lovers. This ritual involved, you guessed it, the black lace veil, on top of which she placed a crown of goat horns before renouncing God and her baptism, along with swearing allegiance to Satan, finalizing the ritual by washing down the vow with a cup of animal life force. You know, simple stuff you can just get at the grocery store. About a month after Lonnie performed the ritual, Alan began paying her the attention she craved, making her entitled world perfect. What she hadn't counted on, however, was that she was in debt to the demonic, having given them permission to enter her life. Ed knew immediately that Lonnie would have to undergo an exorcism as soon as possible, and made contact with the priest the next morning, who was able to come assist with the procedure. Upon arrival, the priest insisted on testing the spirit, just to make sure everything was, as he was told. He instructed Lonnie to close her eyes and slowly count to 20, while his assistant stood behind her and placed a cross 6 inches behind her head. The entity possessing the girl suddenly went wild, screaming, "Take it away, it burns, take it away." During the exorcism, it kept screaming, she's mine, her soul is mine," in reference to, well, Lonnie. It was eventually separated from Lonnie, but just before it departed, the thing vowed it would return to another. The Warrens brought the black lace veil, goat horns, cup, and the Conjuring book home with them, so she would be safe from repossession, but the tale of the veil doesn't end here. Ed received a phone call one day from a man named John Rand, who wanted him to meet his daughter Charlene, who he explained possessed a natural knowledge of what he took to be witchcraft. When she stared at people, even when they weren't aware of it, she'd fill their mind with inhuman terror. Honestly, that could be a nifty little trick. John called Ed specifically because Charlene was manifesting different personalities, some male, some female, and some that couldn't even be called human, but all making extremely threatening statements to John and his wife. Upon bringing Charlene to various doctors and clergymen, they recommended John be put in contact with Ed, and Ed agreed to have the girl and her father visit his home the next weekend. When Ed attempted to shake Charlene's hand upon meeting her, she backed away and stared distrustfully at him, keeping track of every move he made. His attempts to question her resulted in no end answers, and her eyes began to wander about the room in boredom. When they landed on the black lace veil, though, Charlene jumped up, grabbed the veil, and clutched it to her chest. Her features immediately began to transform into those of a wild, sneering creature, distinct from this otherwise, lovely girl. Ed drew 2 vials of water to himself, one unblessed, the other blessed by an exorcist, and moved away from what was no longer Charlene, but an inhuman spirit. A lesser devil of hell, if you will. Horrid moaning and various animal sounds came from the girl as Ed blessed her, banishing the demon away for now a second time. Thankfully, these items have been locked away in the museum ever since. Forget a standalone movie, I feel like this object could spawn an entire franchise. Seriously.
Number 5. The White Lady Ghost. Among the Warrens' career of demonology was this peculiar case involving a local Connecticut legend, the White Lady Ghost of Union Cemetery. Whoosh, that's a doozy of a title. Can't she just be a spooky ghost? Anyway, Union Cemetery dates back 400 years, and it's said to be haunted by this one notable ghost. The tricky thing is, though, nobody quite knows the exact origin of who she is. Some speculate that she's a woman who lost her child in childbirth and hasn't been able to move on to the afterlife because she still seeks out her child. Others speculate that she's a ghost of a victim who had been dumped into a sinkhole near the cemetery, and she's been unable to move on while this crime goes unsolved. The fact that we don't even know her name or who she is, that's probably bothering her. That's probably contributing to all her worldly stress. The only things anyone can agree on truly is that those who say they've seen her claim that she's dressed in a bright white nightgown and has her head and face concealed with a white bonnet. One particularly good ghost story, local legend, says that in the late 90s, a firefighter responding to a call nearby said a woman in a white dress jumped in front of the truck and landed behind him. When he leapt out of the vehicle, there was no body on the ground, but a dent in the hood. Naturally, such a popular local ghost story caught the attention of Connecticut natives Ed and Lorraine Warren, and this never-before-seen footage was released by Tony Spera, their son-in-law, and it's Ed filming the cemetery looking for proof of the White Lady. We'll play some of it for you now so you can get your eyes on it and you can try to make out what's happening. Ed Warren claims that in the footage you can see the ghost walking behind him in the shadows and turning to look at him. Lorraine Warren once said this evidence was so important that it had to be locked away to be studied by the New England Society of Paranormal Research. And I don't want to pop anyone's balloon here. It looks to me like they locked it away because it's not really that impressive. I personally couldn't really see anything in this, but let me know down below if you think this is smoking proof of a ghost walking through the graveyard, or if it's just some blurry lights through the fog. And if you're looking for more ghost videos, stories about Ed and Lorraine, hauntings, possessions, exorcisms, and basically anything freaky, Top 5 Scary has all of that and then some on top of it. Click through, subscribe, and like, and I am certain you'll find something to suit your fears. Stay scared. Number 4. The Museum Tour. If you want to go to the world's foremost collection of haunted relics and cursed objects, there's probably no room more affected by evil than the legendary collection of the Warrens' Haunted Museum of souvenirs from their case files. Now, sadly, as of this recording, the museum is currently closed down and hopefully reopening someday soon, but in the meantime, you can take a little digital tour. As this footage posted by the Warrens' son-in-law, Tony Spera, shows Ed Warren giving a guided tour of some of the more unique and memorable haunted artifacts resting in that Connecticut garage. Now, the full video is definitely worth a watch if you're a fan of the Warrens, since it's about as close as you'll be able to get to walk around the museum these days. It's a full half-hour long of Ed Warren walking around, going into grand detail and recounting some stories about their more notable cases. Some shoutouts I'll include real quick include the witch Hannah Cranna, an old Connecticut legend, or the Conjuring Mirror, which might sound like it has something to do with the movie series, but actually refers to a bizarre case where someone used the mirror in a ritual to try and summon a demon and ended up inviting a poltergeist into his house. Ed talks briefly on some of their favorites, their cursed dolls and toys, such as a dinosaur from the Devil Made Me Do It case, and of course, no visit to the Warrens Museum could possibly exclude mention of Annabelle, who's basically the star attraction of the place and probably why anyone knows who the Warrens are and what keeps the lights on for so long. Annabelle is shown under a tight lock and key as Ed goes over her history of how they brought her in and first found her and how they eventually contained her. He touches briefly on her protocol, how she has to always be locked up in a storage box behind glass, surrounded by rosary beads and doused in holy water in an effort to keep the evil inside of her tucked away. And just a quick little small aside here from me. If a spirit is so powerful and so malevolent that it's able to possess a doll and contain unspeakable evil and attack humans, how is it thwarted so easily by a little bit of glass? I mean, I guess it's still a doll, it doesn't get demon strength, but I didn't know the solution for dealing with demons is the same way you deal with like a dog that's being kind of troublesome. You just put something around them until they can behave. Anyway, moving on. Number 3, an exorcism. To some, the ultimate paranormal dream would be getting to ride shotgun with the Warrens on one of their cases, getting to experience the paranormal firsthand under the tutelage of those who have battled it their whole lives. It would be like if Obi-Wan Kenobi picked you up on some backwater desert planet and asked if you wanted to go on a great adventure with him. It would be awesome. Well, some people get to live their dreams every day. Like me, you know, my dream was to stand in front of a camera and talk about ghosts all day long. A YouTuber by the name of Haley Reese got the rare opportunity to meet Tony Spera, the husband of Judy Warren, daughter of the family, and Lorraine Warren a bit before she passed away, and she got a blessed look into some never before seen footage of the pair of demonologists conducting some field work, namely an exorcism. Now the person being exorcised, their name is Roberto, but they've been blurred out to protect their safety. Demon possession is one thing, but doxing is a whole other. We see Lorraine and Tony both fiercely conducting an exorcism, locked in a spiritual battle against the forces inside. We hear Tony asking for the demon's name repeatedly, not just because he's a friendly guy, he seems like he's pretty friendly, but because to properly drive a demon out of a host, you need to know its name. Well, just listen to what he answers with. It's gonna shock you. Beelzebub. Now there's a bit of discrepancy whether or not Beelzebub and the devil are considered different entities. Depending on the text you're reading or the mythology, sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. Either way, it's bad news. It's not something you would like to invite inside you. The worst part is if you're listening, apparently that's not even the only demon inside. It was like a clown car of demonic energy inside one guy. Now, thankfully, after a tough battle, they were able to get all the demons outside of him and hopefully banish them all away. Do you think it leaves like a weird taste in your mouth after you've had demonic possession? Like, you know, when you wake up, like after having a nap and your mouth just feels weird? I feel like I need to brush my teeth a few times at least afterwards. Number 2, Annabelle On Tour. Annabelle is the #1 name in cursed dolls. Sorry Megan, we love you, but Annabelle's got staying power and she's just been here longer. More movies too, although on a side note, I'm hoping they make more Megan movies. As such, Annabelle has become quite popular, with a lot of demand for the cursed toy, despite the fact that, you know, she's got a demon inside of her and is apparently very evil, and she should be kept under proper lock and key. Did you know that there was a significant enough demand for Annabelle that she tours? Yeah, you heard me right. Annabelle tours. And you know what? I think that's great. Girl, get it. You gotta get that bag, you know? The movies made you a star, really propelled you to the world stage. It would be a shame to keep you locked up in Connecticut when your fans are waiting. A recent clip made the rounds on TikTok of a paranormal investigator, Eric Vital, transporting the allegedly haunted doll to take her to Paracon, a convention for ghost hunters and paranormal enthusiasts to break bread, swap stories, and pick up cursed goods. Founded in the Warrens' memory to carry on their legacy and establish a community of ghost hunters. Eric is part of the New England Society for Paranormal Research, the foundation created by Ed and Lorraine to further the development and research of the paranormal. Now this short video of him unpacking Annabelle got all kinds of attention on TikTok, mostly from people wondering why you would want to take her anywhere, or why you would want to get your hands on her at all. I mean, inside the case she's carried in literally says do not open under any circumstances. Now Eric did understand this, and he assured that those who are worried that they take all the proper precautions, and that's not just putting Annabelle in a seatbelt. We take this very seriously, he said. Our faith is very strong, all of us. So we bless the van. We all have enormous amounts of holy water. We have a priest come in, bless the area, and bless the items. And maybe put her in a car seat too, just to be safe. And number 1, Buddhist Exorcism. You know, it wasn't just the United States where Ed and Lorraine worked on their cases. If there was a call for it, the Warrens would do their best to answer. Plus, I feel like if you only ghost hunt in one country, you're missing out on so many good demons and scares. If you're a fan of the channel, then you know by now just how many really fascinating cultural and regional monsters that exist out there and all the different ghost stories that exist. You know, you can spend your whole life battling demons, but have you ever gone toe to toe with a yokai or an oni? Maybe that's why the Warrens decided to take a trip to Japan in the early 2000s. Maybe they just wanted a nice vacation, or maybe they were getting tired of local poltergeists and wanted a new difficult challenge. They set out to Japan to investigate these allegedly haunted tunnels, where a number of people were reported to have died in. Ed was a former World War II Navy veteran, and he had spent a lot of of time around Japan and was interested in their culture and the reports and things that he had heard. Of course, it was hardly a vacation because while they were there, they were asked to participate in a Buddhist exorcism of a young woman named Teresa who had become the unwilling host to a litany of demons. They were aided by a group of Buddhists during their exorcism, a change of pace from their usual help from ordained Catholic ministers. We'll play it for you now so you can get some eyes on it. In the clip, we can hear Lorraine doing her level best to try and cast the evil out of the young girl's body. Now the clip's a bit hard to watch, I'm gonna be honest. Seeing somebody writhe around screaming in what looks like agony, but luckily, they're being tended to by the experts, I guess. If there was anyone you'd want, it would probably be Ed and Lorraine and a group of Buddhists. Ed and Lorraine said the Buddhists were extremely helpful, saying they were cut from a different cloth. And if they're ever running out of Conjuring movies or running out of ideas for them, I think they should start sending the Warrens internationally. Or just stop pretending they're based on true stories altogether. Have the Warrens try to fight Godzilla or have them fight the Predator or something. Let's see them exercise their way out of that one. Let's see holy water and a little rosary take on the Predator. Number 5. Annabelle. Well, it wouldn't quite be a video about the Warrens without Annabelle. Do you ever wonder, did they ever thank her for all the good publicity she gave them over the years? Now, by now, I'm sure all of you are very familiar with the tale of Annabelle, the haunted doll that Ed and Lorraine kept captive, and probably the most famous case the two of them were involved in. They say that the Amityville Horror was their most famous case, but they made 3 spin-off movies just about Annabelle, so she's pretty big shakes. It was given to a nursing student as a gift from her mother, and within days it turned bad. Notes would appear around the house, scrawled in blood, that read out terrifying messages like, "Help me." It allegedly lunged at the girl's boyfriend one night, grabbing him by the neck. And after that, Ed and Lorraine were called in. I mean, as soon as a toy in your apartment starts trying to choke you out, yeah, definitely get some outside help. They called in to help exorcise the demon inside Annabelle. Now, in the end, they kept her locked up tight, surrounded by rosaries and holy water to ensure the demon inside can't harm anyone anymore. Now, while the stories inspired by Annabelle have gone on to big, great things, and the fictional Annabelle has enjoyed quite the career as a movie star, the real Annabelle is still locked away to keep that evil dormant. In this recently released footage, we're treated to some up-close and personal glamour shots of Annabelle in the flesh, or stuffing, maybe? Locked tight behind her cage. And this footage comes to us from Tony Spera, the son-in-law of Ed and Lorraine, who's taken it upon himself to maintain their legacy on his YouTube channel. If you're a big Ed and Lorraine fan, go check it out, because there's hours and hours of stuff to work through. He takes us on a brief tour of the museum, but gets up close and personal with Annabelle herself. Even through a YouTube screen, you can almost feel some evil energy radiating off this doll. Now, sadly, the Warrens Museum of the Occult is currently closed, so you can't visit Annabelle right now, but they're hoping to reopen it one day soon, so Annabelle can get back to scaring her fans in person like she always has. She makes convention appearances, did you know that? She just recently was at the Warrens Paracon, the convention dedicated to supernatural hunters of the unknown. I'm not sure if I personally would take a selfie with Annabelle. I wouldn't want to ruin her photo like that, unless I could guarantee she'd look really good. I don't want to offend her in any way. I try not to upset any cursed dolls. And if you're looking for way more stories about Ed and Lorraine Warren, true tales of terror, fake fibs of fright, ghouls, goblins, cryptids, aliens, true crime, basically everything scary under the sun and above it, Top 5 Scary is the only place to be. Stay subscribed, stay scared, and don't miss a thing. But let's keep going because we got a whole lot more video to go through. Number 4. Under Scotland. Now, the Warrens' investigations did not just take them on road trips all over the United States. Now, the Warrens might have visited a case in almost every state and then some. The Warrens' journeys saw them traveling all over the globe in an effort to uncover truths and combat evil wherever it was found. In this recently posted footage, we get to see a unique perspective from the Warrens, focusing on Lorraine Warren digging around underground in the secret vaults beneath Edinburgh. Under the ground is a series of large, cavernous vaults that were once used as a storage space for merchants, but when abandoned, became home to Edinburgh's lowest and poorest, who began to make it their dwellings. Probably really, really nice, what with no daylight, musty air, a thriving rodent population, and hey, for the right price, that honestly sounds better than most apartments in Toronto. Because of this, the vaults were the perfect place to conduct a little nefarious business, if you know what I mean. You know, all sorts of nasty nasty crimes that aren't fit to discuss on YouTube. It's believed that two of Edinburgh's most prolific criminals hid bodies here before taking them to medical schools to sell off. So, because of its grim history, it's no surprise that people believe the vaults to be haunted, claiming they feel watched or touched when walking through them. So when supernatural weirdness happens, the Warrens are soon to follow. This one's actually pretty cool. It's kind of like going on a ghost tour from your own home. First person, making you feel like you're exploring those subterranean depths with her. The real highlight though is the guide, who's this very geriatric Scottish man who seems to know the tunnels very well. If I ever take this tour, I need to insist on my guide being an old Scottish man who I almost can't understand. That seems like the most appropriate and trustworthy way to go ghost hunt. Now, they didn't find anything too much on this investigation, but while in there, Lorraine claims that she can feel something communicating with her long ago. Could it just be the spirits from long ago, or radio feedback? Let me know in the comments. Number 3, the Donovan Poltergeist. Now, our next entry is going to cover the Donovan Poltergeist, an often forgotten case in the Ed and Lorraine Warren oeuvre. In this clip, moderator Tony Spera, he's coming up a lot in this video, mentions that Ed has told him that on a scale of 1 to 10 for demonic intensity, I love that you can rank demonic intensity like that, the Warrens found this case to be a 10. Now, I gotta ask, if it's so intense, I wonder why it's not more well known, but maybe they're keeping it hush hush because this is going to be the plot of Conjuring 4, so I'm giving you the spoilers right now. The Donovan Poltergeist case was in West Hartford, Connecticut, when a young girl had come into possession of a Ouija board, one of the most haunted Hasbro products ever released, alongside the game Sorry. Ed briefly talks about how people can be so dismissive of Ouija boards. I mean, imagine who would be so dismissive of Ouija boards. Don't know anybody like that. And Ed mentions that although they may seem innocent and unbecoming like a children's toy, a Ouija board is an invitation for spirits to come and disrupt. The girl in question in the Donovan case asked the Ouija board all sorts of questions and started to get answers that only a spirit could give. Ed says that the spirit needed something in return, and afterwards her house started to become rabid. Objects thrashed around, levitating, so on. Ed describes a violent interaction with the poltergeist, claiming that at one point during their investigation, he found himself literally pinned to the wall by a malevolent spirit. He describes as well the house being pelted with rocks from the sky and objects vanishing. Imagine the size of the umbrella you would need if it's raining rocks. This definitely sounds pretty extreme, all things considered. They claim that they would watch things dematerialize in front of their very own eyes, as if Mr. Scott was teleporting them away on the Star Trek transporter. Now, eventually, Ed describes getting in contact with a priest to perform an exorcism on the cursed house, freeing the family from spectral torment. And stay tuned to see if that's going to be the plot for Conjuring 4. I'm almost pretty sure. Number 2, the Japanese tunnels. Among the many accolades and achievement in his career before he was a ghost hunter, Ed Warren was a veteran of the US Navy and served in the Second World War and spent a good amount of time stationed around Japan. As such, from a young age, he developed an interest in Japanese folklore and the yokai and spirits that go with it. So naturally, they had to take a trip out east to go investigate some spirits there. They took a trip to Nagoya to investigate an apartment building that allegedly was being haunted by the floating head of an ancient samurai warrior. That's unnerving. I've heard of headless ghosts. I've even heard of nearly headless ghosts. But I think this is the first time I've heard of a ghost that was just a head. I think that honestly might be way scarier, just seeing a head like floating around down a hallway, but that's just me. Now, this wasn't the sole focus of their journeys though. They had more going on. The two of them also sought out an exploration of Japan's haunted tunnels, a tunnel where 200 people were allegedly buried alive after an avalanche during a typhoon trapped some 200 souls inside and made the tunnel their grave. Local reports would claim that the people would hear the screams of the damned late at night. So Ed and Lorraine visited it, and they both said it was terrifying and claimed that walking through it was freezing, the coldest thing either of them had ever experienced. Ed said a bitter cold came over him as he reached the end. He relays as well a story of a young man who tried to challenge his fear of the supernatural and ride a motorcycle right through this tunnel, paid for it with his life, and crashed. Now, for what it's worth, you know I love playing skeptic around here. You know I love getting my Scully on. I'm more of a Scully than I am a Mulder. I think this might be more of an urban legend because I did do a lot of digging for this video and I could not find any confirmed stories of a mass death inside a tunnel in Japan from an avalanche, but it's possible that it could be lost to time, very ancient, maybe records get lost, but nonetheless, interesting to listen to.
Depending on what you consider terrifying, today might just shock your psyche. Just so we all have the same context going into this, the White Lady is the name of the ghost that haunts the Union Cemetery in Easton, Connecticut. Most locals believe her to be the ghost of Harriet Seeley, whose young son passed shortly after being born, with Harriet herself passing soon afterwards. Legend believes she may have died in hopes of finding her son, and still wanders their final resting place searching him out. Whereas other folks believe the White Lady is the ghost of a woman from the 1940s who, well, she killed her husband and later took her own life and is now doomed to wander the graveyard. Her physical description is the one thing that remains consistent. She is a young woman wearing a white dress with, well, dark hair. Many who have witnessed her believe they have almost hit her with their vehicle, only to find no trace of her once they pull over. Others claim they have often seen her hovering slightly above the ground around the cemetery, going back and forth amongst different gravestones. So Ed Warren was obsessed with her, and he went on record a lot of times being like, I am determined to capture footage of this elusive lady. And allegedly he was able to do so, but then he kept the tape for himself. He hoarded it like it held the secrets to the universe, like it was proof of alien life. Now, ever since the passing of both Ed and Lorraine, their son-in-law, Tony Spera, has released the footage in its entirety to YouTube, and the tape shows an apparent white human figure moving behind some tombstones. And similar to most UFO footage, most Bigfoot footage, Loch Ness Monster, etc., the figure is at that perfect distance and resolution so you can see a shape, but you can't ID anything. Well, enter a woman named Judith Penny, who helped Ed allegedly maintain his reputation by faking this. So when he claimed to have captured the White Lady on tape in the summer of 1990, after allegedly camping out in the graveyard for a week, allegedly Judith was the mystical being spotted on tape, masking herself with a classic white sheet. Well, this next video is blurred on YouTube to protect the identity of the poor girl. I personally think it's up there as one of the most frightening things I've ever seen. At an hour and 20 minutes long, it depicts a Catholic bishop in Connecticut attempting to converse with a demonic entity that has possessed the body of an innocent young woman, while her family restrains her. Ed and Lorraine were the ones to alert the church to the possession after meeting this young girl during an audience chat session that was held at the conclusion of one of their public presentations. During portions of the exorcism, when prayer is done, you can hear the demon acting wildly, and it originally refuses to give its name, both of which are quite common in cases of demonic possession. Eventually, we learn that there are not one, not two, but 4 demons possessing our victim, with one of them identifying themselves as Robert, a name associated with the son of Satan. So this footage was unreleased until after the passing of Ed and Lorraine, and it's believed they were told by the Catholic Church to specifically keep it under wraps. But their son-in-law doesn't have the same fear or respect for the church, depending on how you look at things, so I guess we have Tony Spera to thank. This next video is from 2014, and it's a ritual that was captured on camera by a man who heard the shrieks of a woman inside a sanctuary and filmed it through a peephole. This incident occurred at the Assumption of the Virgin Mary Church in Vanlove and Digi in February of 2014, and the church's priest, Marek Dunda, confirmed the video is real. But he's like, if there's something filmed through a keyhole, there's nothing more to say about it. Which, like, okay, good at dodging the question, I guess. So obviously, because of the nature of the video, it's kind of hard to tell what's happening, but it appears that at least 2 people surround the woman, who can be heard screaming in absolute agony with momentary pauses in between the duration of the just under 2-minute long video. Daniel Trachta, who captured the video after hearing the screams, warns people in the description to watch the chilling footage while wearing headphones. When asked about the condition of the woman in the video, the priest said any details about her or her state were private. And don't get me wrong, while I'm glad the church is protecting her privacy, I just hope she was able to find solace and be healed of her demons. On April 5th of 1991, 2020 featured a segment that showed an actual Roman Catholic ritual of casting out demons. Videotaped at a nun's home in the suburban Palm Beach County, the segment shows the affected girl, referred to only as Gina, as she thrashes under the effect of ancient prayers. She's sprinkled with holy water, and you've got that classic cross pressed to the head. Obviously, because she's possessed, she's retching, she's writhing, she's yelling, she's baring her teeth. She's saying, "Get me out of here, me not want to leave." She's shrieking at the priest, and she even snaps her bonds. If the exorcism team hadn't tied her down, she might have actually levitated to the ceiling. At the time, the March 25th issue of US News and World Report carried no fewer than 5 articles on hell and the devil. Because apparently at the time, it was like more than the heyday of the 1950s when it came to demonic stuff. And another poll released in the same year said that 55% of Americans believe in the devil and in demonic possession. So how does that tie into this? Well, we're talking about exorcisms, right? Speaking of which, the main exorcist in this report is only known as Father A. And going back to the sisters involved, we've got Lois Schaefer and the Reverend Walton Dockerow. And they took part in this, even though, technically off the record. Palm Beach Bishop J. Keith Simmons, who permitted the taping, issued only a little statement saying the devil really exists. He was powerful and active at work in the world today, as through the centuries, which echoes a lot of other cardinals. And it was Cardinal John O'Connor's remark that there can be no question about the reality of the devil that initially drew the interest of the TV show for this exorcism. Eventually, after that, the church got so many requests from around the country to investigate cases of possession that they had to be like, we need somebody. Well, this fell to Reverend James LaBarre, a specialist in the occult, who looked into the initial claims and was like, okay, well, for starters, Gina was genuinely being tormented. According to the report, she was experiencing crazy psychotic episodes, visions of demons, dead people. The mom tried everything. She tried a spiritualist, she tried hospitals, you name it, she tried it. In the footage that we have today, at the time, the priest said she was being controlled by 10 spirits. So they met all the violent reactions by following the prayers and gestures of the rite. Apparently, this whole ordeal took like 6 hours, and apparently that's not uncommon for exorcism lengths. Before the procedure even began, Father A was like, yeah, it's terrifying. I could die tomorrow, I could be attacked, I could be taken over, which is it worth it, pal? Evil spirits like to take their time leaving a body, and not without a fight. And that leaves everybody drained, exhausted, and vulnerable. Also quoted is Dr. Warren Schlanger of Miami Children's Hospital. Also quoted is a doctor of a local hospital where Gina was treated before and after the exorcism, and she's like, yeah. And he said, even I don't know. Father A was troubled. He was believing that after this exorcism, the devil was disturbing his sleep, attempting to weaken and destroy him. But he said, hey, that's a price I gotta pay. I'm a church man against demons. American professional boxer Ryan Garcia recently alleged that Bohemian Grove, a place rumored to exist in the north of San Francisco, is not only real, but it's a place where he's seen some heinous stuff. Be careful watching, folks. This was during an X-Space interview with Andrew Tate earlier this year, and there was a video that actually went viral that shows an alleged satanic ritual. It was reportedly taken in the year 2000 by prominent conspiracy theorist Alex Jones because he was actually able to infiltrate Bohemian Grove about a couple of times after being denied a bazillion. And while the visual is obviously hazy, the audio is a little unclear, you can see some kind of ritual. We got like fireworks, we've got cloaked priests, which that checks a couple of my boxes for a satanic ritual. Additionally, Alex Jones's interview on the Joe Rogan Experience went viral because he's like, hey, yeah, when I trespassed, I saw effigies being burnt in front of a large owl shrine, which only further fuels the alleged satanic speculation. Well, the official Bohemian Club website is like, hey, we don't do anything secret or illegal or this doesn't exist. We all know better.
And number 1, the Amityville Interview. Now, the Warrens argued that the most famous case they ever worked on was the Amityville Horror, and there's no denying that when this case happened, it gripped the American public. In 1973, Ronald DeFeo took a hunting rifle and went one by one, ending the lives of each one of his family members remorselessly while they slept. He would later go on to claim that he was being commanded to do it. He was compelled by spirits to act this way. A little bit later, a new family, the Lutzes, moved into the Amityville house, aware of what had transpired, but moving forward with it anyway. It's just such a good deal on rent, you gotta take it where you can get it. In this recently released footage, we hear from Ed and Lorraine speaking in great detail about their experiences working on the infamous legendary case on their TV program Seekers of the Supernatural with the Warrens. Lorraine outlines how immediately upon walking in she felt stepping into the house, she felt immediately wrong. She reiterates that upon entering, she felt a great unnerving presence. She says pretty much as soon as she entered the sewing room, she turned to the homeowner and said, I hope this is as close to hell as I get. That's raw. The sewing room allegedly is where a focus of the haunting was, where the hundreds of flies apparated, where the spectral voices were heard telling people to get out. They speak as well of how they brought a reverend with them in the investigation who felt a physical slap in his face walking in. And if you're looking for more details about the Amityville case, the movie from the 70s and the movie with Ryan Reynolds, both pretty good retellings of the story. Ed goes on to address allegations that the Amityville case was a hoax, saying he offered a $3,000 reward for anyone who could prove to him that it was faked. Later in life, the lawyer representing Ronald DeFeo claims that the entire haunting story was a concoction he made up with the Lutzes over a bottle of wine in an effort to get a retrial for his client and drum up a bit of book business for the Lutzes. No word if he ever ended up getting $3,000 out of Ed. So whether or not the story really happened is one thing, but I think we can all agree the folklore that has come out of it is interesting enough and is a definitive part of the greater American mythos, this classic haunted house story. And it's entertaining nonetheless. Number 3, the Shadow Doll. And coming in at the number 3 spot for today is going to be this footage of the Shadow Doll. When you first enter the Warrens' haunted museum, be it digitally or physically, one of the first things you'll see is this frightening little doll, affectionately dubbed the Shadow Doll. The Shadow Doll, that's fun to say. It's made of bird feathers and real human teeth. Lovely, those are some of my favorite ingredients. Now, it's currently owned by Tony Spera. He offers a bit of insight into the doll's history, saying it was originally acquired at an antique shop where it was sold with the owners of the shop completely oblivious to the doll's cursed energy. I don't buy that at all. What do you mean oblivious to the doll's cursed energy? Somebody came to you and sold you a doll made of bird feathers and human teeth, and your first instinct wasn't to douse the thing in holy water and kerosene for good measure? I know pawn shops ain't exactly the classiest place around, but you gotta have some standards, right? You gotta be able to recognize evil. There are very few dolls with human teeth that aren't evil. Spera claims the doll has an insidious curse inside it. Oh, wait, no, sorry, the Warrens weren't insidious. Anyway, the curse says that if you take a photograph of the doll, and when it develops, you write a curse that you'd like to inflict and then send it to your victim. The person who then opens the envelope and sees the photo of the doll will invite the curse into your home. The doll is also capable of some dream magic like Freddy Krueger and can even stop your heart while you're asleep if Mr. Warren is to be believed. And I know what you might be thinking. Did you just curse all of us by showing us this footage and pictures of the doll? No, of course not. I toss a salt circle around the camera before I film anything just to make sure no residual curses pass through the internet. I will say though, I have heard some pretty credible rumors that you're more susceptible to be cursed if you don't like, comment, and subscribe after watching a video, so I honestly would say on the safe side of things, you should do that. And on another side note, having done a lot of research on the pair of these two, I cannot stress how many haunted dolls and toys these people had. They had like the world's scariest Toys R Us in their backyard.
Number 5. Satanic Worship Idol. Before we dive into the strange footage of the satanic idol, let's talk about its odd and terrifying backstory. The story of the idol begins in 1991, near Ed and Lorraine's home. There was a lost deer hunter wandering through the area, and after hours of finding no discernible landmarks or ways home, he came face to face with an odd and captivating discovery. In front of him was a large, raised rock formation consisting of circular rocks and a strange being standing in the center of the altar. The hunter, as I believe most of us would be, felt quite uncomfortable and uneasy about this discovery. So he began making his way back to his car, but on his way, he turned to his side and noticed an elderly man with dark eyes dressed in a fully black suit walking in perfect step with him. The two hadn't shared a word, and the hunter became more anxious with each hollow step he took, still not sure of the way out of the woods. The hunter cautiously turned over to the strange man, and with a deep breath he asked, "How do I get out of here?" The strange man lifted up a frail hand and pointed towards a small overgrown path. The hunter turned to see a small pathway and then turned back to the man to thank him, but upon glancing, the man was nowhere to be seen. He disappeared as quickly as he had appeared. The hunter escaped the forest, but was so perplexed and intrigued by the strange encounter that he decided to contact none other than Ed and Lorraine Warren. Now, here's where a new, hardly known fact is revealed. Ed and Lorraine almost always investigated reports armed with a camera to capture any footage that they may have missed and for review. Ed and the hunter located the altar, and in a moment of what can only be described as white audacity, Ed removed the demonic doll from the altar and brought it back to the museum. In the footage, the strange elderly man can be seen lurking in strange corners of the screen, materializing in random positions throughout the footage. The video recording also cuts out frequently, and strange humming noise can be heard along with the glitches. Ed and Lorraine kept the footage under wraps due to the effects that the doll had on Lorraine. And if you'd like to find out more about that reasoning, check out our video on cursed artwork in the Warren Occult Museum. Number 4. Snecker House. The Warrens are famous for their home investigations of the Perron family, the Conjuring movie inspiration, and the Amityville home. But there's a less known, very well documented case that the pair also investigated, the Snecker House. Carmen and Al Snecker rented a home in Southington, Connecticut, but But upon exploring the house, they encountered something that would have scared me out of there faster than light. The pair discovered mortuary tools in their basement, tools that were used in the closed morgue that was in the basement of this house. The home was a funeral parlor. The only time living in a funeral home is acceptable is in my girl. The couple began smelling rotten flesh, strong chemical odors throughout the house, and the water from the taps would randomly turn a deep red. Their sons were plagued by visions of ghosts and other strange entities. The ghosts became aggressive towards the family, and that's when they decided to call the Warrens for assistance, scared for their lives. The Warrens showed up, filming. They documented several apparitions. Lorraine reported feeling several supernatural entities, all who were filled with vengeance and bouts of pain. The Warrens deduced, within the same visit, that they believed the morticians would participate in horrendous, actually unspeakable acts with the deceased bodies brought into the home. Ed and Lorraine ended their investigation very quickly. In the tape, it's reported that the Sneckers repeatedly asked for sound advice on how to deal with their issue, but sadly, no footage beyond their questioning has been released. The Warrens' advice to the family remains a complete mystery. What do you think their advice would have been? Number 3, the black lace veil. Right in the middle, we're going to talk about an event that had many eyewitnesses and was likely captured in some degree by recording equipment. Following one of their public lectures, Ed and Lorraine Warren were approached by a young couple, Alan and Lonnie. Alan had brought Lonnie to the lecture because he suspected that she was under the influence of the occult. He described a disturbance. When Lonnie became angry, her features would morph and transform into a creature resembling a wolf, and an entirely different voice would emerge from her. Just as Lorraine joined the conversation, a shocking incident unfolded. Lonnie experienced an instantaneous possession and lunged aggressively at Lorraine, utterly terrifying everyone present in the room. Ed swiftly escorted the couple to a backstage room where Lonnie was fully under possession, her face distorted into the aforementioned wolf-like appearance. After about 10 minutes, the possession subsided, and Lonnie revealed her disturbing experiences of memory loss and losing time over the past few months, which, as you know, are all very common symptoms of possession. Lonnie confessed that she had resorted to witchcraft after failing to win Alan's affections. She performed a ritual that involved a black lace veil and a crown of goat horns, renouncing her faith and swearing allegiance to Satan. In a month, Alan began showing interest, but the demonic entity had gained entrance into her life. Ed knew that Lonnie needed an exorcism and contacted a priest who arrived the same day. During the exorcism, the entity within Lonnie screamed in protest, but was eventually separated from her, vowing to return to another. The Warrens took the black lace veil, goat horns, cup, and conjuring book for safekeeping to prevent repossession. However, the story of the veil didn't end there. Months later, during a meeting with another woman who manifested multiple personalities and inhuman entities, her gaze landed on the black veil. She clutched it, her features transformed, and she became an inhuman spirit. Ed, armed with blessed water, banished the demon a second and final time. Both of these events are said to have been captured on a tape recorder, as the Warrens frequently recorded their lectures. Number 2, the haunted pearl necklace. The haunted pearl necklace is also referred to as the pearls of death. This jewelry's effects are pretty obvious. The necklace is known as one of the most dangerous items within the Warrens Occult Museum, so yeah, it's living up to its name already. The Pearls of Death is a cursed necklace that has a curse or entity residing in it, causing anyone who wears it to be strangled, and in some cases even strangled so brutally that their lives are ended. Yeah. Death by a necklace. I'm starting to rethink my stance on that gorgeous blue diamond necklace. If you know, you know. It's an inside joke. Only my faves know what I'm talking about. One of their former owners commonly reported being choked while wearing them, even waking up with red marks on her neck after sleeping in them. The pearls are also extremely difficult to remove. Well, they're difficult to remove from the living. Ed and Lorraine Warren kept these pearls heavily guarded and surveyed, and if you're like me, the word surveyed raises excited alarm bells. That's right. Within the museum, several security cameras are placed, which not only protect the artifacts, but also monitor any strange activity. In one surveillance clip, which was privately distributed by an anonymous source who had regular access to the museum, revealed a myriad of strange activities surrounding the pearls. The video captures the pearls vibrating ever so slightly before a small light emanates from them, and a dark shadow quickly shifts towards the ground, as though it was water flowing out of the pearls. These events repeated night after night, typically around 4:24 a.m., with the effects being weaker the further away they get from the stated time. Whether Ed and Lorraine were aware of the footage being leaked to a select group of people, they never addressed it. They didn't even deny it. I suppose they figured ignoring the footage completely would decrease the interest in it, and hey, they were right. I'd never heard of it until now.
And finally, in first place, we have footage of an American exorcism. While the video is blurred out on YouTube to protect the identity of the poor girl, I personally think it's up there as one of the most frightening things I've ever seen. At an hour and 20 minutes long, it depicts a Catholic bishop in Connecticut attempting to converse with a demonic entity that has possessed the body of an innocent young woman, while her family restrains her. Ed and Lorraine were the ones to alert the church to the possession after meeting her during an audience chat session that was held at the conclusion of one of their public presentations. During portions of the exorcism when prayer is done, you can hear the demon acting wildly, and it originally refuses to give its name, both of which are quite common in cases of demonic possession. Eventually we learn that there are 4 demons possessing our victim, with one of them identifying themselves as Robert, which happens to be a name associated with the son of Satan. I'll let a snippet roll now, allowing you to hear the woman for yourself.
Number 4. Ed Warren invoking a spirit on camera. Coming up next is this video uploaded by Tony Spera, the Warrens' son-in-law, on his personal YouTube channel. If you're a fan of the Warrens and you're not already, I would recommend subscribing to Tony Spera. He puts all sorts of Warren related clips up on the channel and it's fun. Now, it's hard to say much about this particular video because it was uploaded without a whole lot of context. The video doesn't really mention a date, a location, or a case, or anything else like that. It's a bit troublesome because the Warrens have said to have worked on hundreds of cases over the years, so this could be any one of them, or maybe it's just one of the lesser, less exciting cases that got pushed to the side. They can't all get made into movies, Now, in the video, we can see Ed filming what looks like a fairly normal 70s living room, although the room is definitely haunted. You can tell right away from that liminal yellow wallpaper color. You can hear Ed Warren yelling out the name of Jesus Christ in an attempt to provoke the spirit into appearing. It's said that during an exorcism, to get a spirit or a demon or a ghost to reveal itself, you need to invoke the name of Jesus Christ, put a little fear of God into him. After about a minute of some serious invoking, it seems like Ed is finally getting through to the spirit because we see the table and chairs slide across the ground as if they're being pushed backwards by some incredible invisible force. Now, we don't really see anything more exciting or spiritual than the chairs and tables getting pushed, but that's pretty exciting nonetheless. There's not a ton of footage from the Warrens while they were, working the field, so it's pretty exciting to see whenever we get opportunities like this though. Of course, I do hear you saying this could just be faked. So is this the footage of a ghost caught on camera, or is this nothing more than a faked video to drum up some attention back in the day, like an original CGI hoax video on TikTok? Number 3, driveway alien. Ed and Lorraine Warren got involved in all sorts of things. It's said that they've tussled with vampires, with werewolves. Now, we don't have it on 100% authority that they ever encountered aliens, but they definitely could have. They researched everything. So let's take a look at this weird video of what looks to be a visitor from another world touching down on the driveway. You wouldn't expect aliens to make first contact in Colorado, but hey, here we are. In this video, we can see a really scrawny little creature walking up and down Vivian Gomez's driveway. The creature had people talking because, well, take a look at it. Just what is it? It almost looks like it's got giant ears flopping around when it moves, and I'm not gonna lie to you, it reminds me a lot of Dobby from Harry Potter, so maybe he just got a sock and he's just celebrating his happiness and he's excited to be free. The woman whose driveway caught the security footage, one Vivian Gomez, had this to offer when she posted it on Facebook. So I woke up on Sunday morning and saw this on my camera, and I'm trying to figure out what the heck. First, I saw the shadow walking from my front door, then I saw this thing. Has anyone else seen this on their cameras? The other 2 cameras didn't pick it up for some reason. Sadly, her security camera only films for about 10 seconds or so, so this is the only footage that she was able to capture of this mysterious driveway creature. Gomez clarified for everyone that whatever it was wasn't her son. Okay, we weren't thinking that, but now we're definitely not thinking that, because she doesn't let him out by himself that late, although that opens up a lot of questions. She saw something strange running around her driveway at night and considered the possibility that that might be her son. Like I said, I'm pretty sure the most likely possibility is that this is a freed house elf excited for the future, or a very confused alien. Could be an alien that just touched down. Maybe a Terminator traveling through time. That's why it looked naked. Gang, you let me know what you think what this mystery monster could have been down below. Number 2, Jarkand. Coming up next is a clip out of India that went viral last year and captured the attention of paranormal enthusiasts, alien hunters, and skeptics alike. I like when you can get everybody all in together and like that. You see something weird on camera, we're like, is this an alien? Is this a ghost? Is this a demon? I'm not sure, but let's all take a look at it. A strange humanoid-like figure was spotted walking across the road in India, confusing everybody. Whatever it was filmed walking alone steadily on a bridge at night in Jharkhand in eastern India, staggering around through the night. Now the thing looks human, and my brain initially is like, yeah, that's a human. But the more you look at it, the more you start to wonder if maybe, just maybe, this might have crawled out of something. This creature is gangly, and it has these long arms and long pale white skin and very skinny, and it looks like something out of Silent Hill. Motorcyclists were swerving out of the way of this figure, which stops and stares at them for a bit before continuing to stroll onwards. Now naturally, this got people talking, because it's not every day you see a terrifying pale figure like that. More than a few people suggested that it could be an alien walking around the streets at night, explaining why it seems so confused. Others suggested that it could be a ghost, which would be pretty spooky. I would say it does seem like it's physically present. It seems like it's physically on the road, so I'm not 100% that it's a ghost. And finally, there's the realists, who have suggested that this could just be someone who had a long night and is lost and on all the substances right now, just trying to get a good night's sleep. As far as I know, no one has cracked this case, certainly not Ed and Lorraine Warren, so we may never have a satisfying answer.